Good morning. This is Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. This is a meeting of the Majority Minority Redistricting Subcommittee. A roll call. Donna Bullock.
Here.
Constance Graves.
Here.
Adrian Kissy.
Here.
Dominic Mazza.
Here.
Kashana Owens Cody.
Here.
Larry Malden.
Here.
And myself, Marie Allen Campbell, present. And we also have Jeffrey Weiss.
I am here.
So put together a future meeting schedule. Basically, it's Saturdays. There's one Monday date on here in case we need it. And there was a date on here for next Wednesday, which if we're not gonna do anything, I will cancel after this meeting. But here's copies for everybody. Jeff, I will email it to you. Can you hear me, Jeff? Jeff?
He's frozen.
Jeff, you're frozen.
Okay, I think we're back.
So Jeff, I put together a meeting schedule. I'll email it to you after.
Right,
this.
that's the last I heard, but we're back on now.
Okay, on the schedule, I think I ran the meetings through December 10th. I don't think we're gonna need all those meetings, but it's better that we have a schedule, and if we don't need them, we can just cancel them. Jeff, you had advised that December 12th was gonna be the due date.
Right, that's the date that the county attorney and the county legislature's attorney and I had discussed, and they both decided at the Albany end that based on the correspondence notifying the commission and the MMD and the 60-day period, that it would end on December 12th.
So based on my counting, that 60 days includes the day that she emailed it to us.
No, you start the day after.
So I think it should be December 13th, not December 12th.
They counted through the calendars and, you know, the county and whatever rules they've got.
Yeah, I counted it a few times and I kept coming up with December 13th.
But because what day did you start? I'll go back and ask them, what day did you start on?
I started on the 15th.
Okay, on Monday, I'll ask them.
And we received it on when?
The 14th.
Yeah, start on the 15th.
Yeah, so if you start counting on the 15th, it's December 13th would be the date that it's due back.
Okay, I'll just, you know, did you count Thanksgiving? I don't know where that fits in, but I'll ask them.
If they say 50 days, they mean calendar days.
I'm
And-
gonna find it. I'm gonna ask them. They did the calculations, notified me.
Right, but generally if they say days, they mean calendar days. If they use work days, they'll usually say work days, so you know that
Right.
you eliminate the weekends, but Thanksgiving falls within that, so it would be calendar days. So there's no exception for Thanksgiving.
Okay, I'm just being, you know, just asking the question. I'll find out and I'll let you know.
Okay, so in terms of our schedule of work, I think I had highlighted a date on that sheet. Is it an extra one? Thank you. I highlighted a date on that sheet. Because on or before that date, we need to have whatever our determination is the ACRC needs to have it, so they can do what they need to do. And it's likely gonna need to be prior to that date to give them time to configure the rest of the districts.
I need to,
Like, once we make a determination, if our determination is gonna result in a different map than the one we recommended, then they're gonna need to go and they're gonna need to configure all of the rest of the districts to conform to that. And that's assuming that if we make a change, that they just accept our change.
I can tell you now, I'm not going to be here on the 12th of November.
Okay,
That makes two of us.
okay. So next on the agenda,
So the date you're talking about, you got highlighted, is that the October 27th?
well, October 27th, that's the ACRC public meeting that we all
Okay.
need to
We
be
have
in
to be there.
attendance for. Well, we
Okay.
should be there, because if there's public comments, we need to hear them.
So the other date
So
you're talking about,
everybody
So
should,
you're talking about the November 12th date?
I'm talking about the November 12th day, and it might need to be earlier, because that just gives them like, what, roughly 3 weeks? If December 13th is the date, it's a little more over 3 weeks that'll give them to do what they have to do. And for us to all be able to have whatever needs to go back to the legislature, ready to go back to them. So I really think that date is gonna need to be an earlier date.
Makes sense.
Okay,
You want to talk about that now or
about,
an earlier date?
yeah, we can try to come up with a date,
So that we're
a
just.
target date to have it.
Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
all committed to that date.
Yeah. So ACRC has suggested that we split the 60 days into
30 for
30.
us and 30 for them.
Yeah,
Wow, we're already
Well-
behind the 8 ball.
so, I mean, we both were already behind the 8
Yeah,
ball.
but us more so because they're waiting on us to do what we're gonna do to do their map. And our mappers aren't here until the 27th. 28th.
And the other thing is,
That doesn't give us-
our stuff is more time consuming,
Mhm.
you know, and on the other side, they still have to be able to schedule the work that they have to do.
Mhm.
So. So what do y'all think is reasonable? I mean, a lot of it is gonna depend on where we go from here as well. In terms of how much work is gonna be involved in getting to our point of a determination relative to what we're gonna recommend to them.
Doesn't look like,
Maybe we'll have a better idea after we discuss the things that we're gonna discuss today. Maybe.
Okay.
Oakbridge won't be back until,
They're back on the 28th and they'll be joining our meeting on the 29th.
Okay.
But
Next Saturday.
it would be best for us prior to Oakbridge coming back to have already made some determinations as to what we want them to do. I'd like to be able to send them an email that basically says this is what we're looking at. Because that'll help them to be able to come to that October 29th meeting as prepared as they can be.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay, next was a legal update and discussion. Jeff, you're up.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start with my comments on the rejected plan and the legal strategy moving forward. The 7-district plan that you recommended, 5 probable to elect and 2 likely to elect, is probably the best plan that insulates the city against litigation and maximizes in a practical way minority districting. Now, having that plan rejected, the options I'm looking at are pretty much as follows. Now, if you go to a 5-district plan, and that plan includes districts that are that include districts that are 50% or more for each of the 5 districts, where it's already been demonstrated that polarized voting, but also white crossover voting, in that the 5 districts are already effective minority districts. If you artificially inflate any of those districts well above 50% unnecessarily, then you're going to run the risk of a 14th Amendment racial gerrymandering problem based on a 2017 U.S. Supreme Court decision of Cooper versus Harris coming out of North Carolina. What happened in North Carolina was that originally, years back, you had 2 congressional districts in North Carolina that were drawn at 50% plus minority voting age population. But over the years, those districts elected the minority preferred candidate with white crossover voting as the state really matured in its voting patterns, where those districts had in the high 40s percentage Black population. And what the did there was took those districts in the 40s and put them up into the 50s. And in a decision that was written by, I believe, Justice Breyer and joined by all of the liberal justices, the court ruled that was packing minority voters excessively into districts that then denied minority voters the opportunity not just to elect the 2 members of Congress in districts they had, but in additional districts, that you can't pack everybody there is into the fewest number of districts. So in Albany County, if you have districts that are in, let's say, the high 40s or even at 50, and you start raising them to 52, 53%, then you are running the risk of a federal lawsuit based on the 14th Amendment. That's one situation. Now, if you draw 5 districts, pretty much where they are, this is my second scenario. If you draw 5 districts, basically at where they are now, not necessarily over 50%, and you do, then you want to see if you can draw a 6th district that would reach a 50% type population, 50% plus. Because if you can, and I know, in the iterations you've looked at, you probably can't, but I'm just trying to lay out the law for you. If you cannot draw a 6th district at 50% plus minority voting age population, then a challenger cannot meet the first prong of the so-called Jingles test. And I'll remind you, the Jingles test, coming out of a 1985 Supreme Court decision, set out a 3-prong test you've got to meet in order to create a minority district under the Voting Rights Act. First, this is what I'm talking about right now, you've got to create a district that consists of at least 50% plus minority voting age population. I don't think you can do that, or at least we haven't seen it so far. Second, you want to demonstrate that the minority community votes cohesively for the same kinds of candidates. And then third, you want to show that there's a high level of racially polarized voting. So the key test here is whether that sixth district can reach the 50% plus mark. Now, putting aside that you probably can't, these are one of the things you'll be discussing again with Arkridge when they return, is what happens if you simply create 5 districts, you can't draw a sixth, but you are also not drawing the 2 probable to elect districts that the legislature was uncomfortable with. The problem there is the new state law, the one that the legislature and governor enacted back in June, the John R. Lewis New York State Voting Rights Act. And that law, which will go into effect next July, creates what we call rights of action for denying or abridging anyone's right to vote if you are a member of a protected class. And the specific provision that I'm focusing in on is one where there is evidence that more than one protected class of eligible voters are politically cohesive in the city, that members of the separate protected classes could be combined. So basically, by creating 5 secure districts, and I'm suggesting you draw them at the levels that you have already drawn them to avoid that 14th Amendment racial gerrymandering situation, but that under the state law, if you don't create 1 or 2 more additional districts that are either coalition districts or going back to Judge Kahn's 2015 decision combining Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, then next year a lawsuit could be filed based on state law alleging that you did not properly enfranchise minority voters in outside the 5 likely to elect districts. So the one thing so what we need to have Arkridge do is come back and see, of the 5 districts, what other ways could they be drawn to ensure minority electability without packing over 50%. I think Dr. Hanley did the analysis on that, but she did that based on the maps that you've already created and that she's reviewed. So if you draw new maps, each time you draw a new map, you need to run the reconfigured election results over the new map to see what it does. And then the outside risk is leaving the county open to liability if somebody decides next year to challenge based on the failure to create what we'll call coalition or influence districts that are plurality districts that could elect a Black or Black Hispanic combined preferred candidate, as the 7-district plan you've already recommended did. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I have a question. My question is this. Is it our job to try to anticipate what may happen a year from now? Or
That's
may open up the county to a lawsuit a year from now? Or is it our job to come up with something now and let whatever happens and deal with it when it happens?
That's a decision that really you need to make, because essentially you would be setting up a situation that would be containable this year, but with elections next year and with the state law going into effect July 1st, even though that's after the primary next year, who's to know if some John Q. citizen decides to file a lawsuit seeking a preliminary injunction against use of the plan next summer and throwing everything up in the air? There's no real way of knowing that. My sense is that because a challenge next year would go to state court. State courts act rather quickly as compared to federal courts, which act, much slower. It's hard to say. This year we had a situation in the state legislature and Senate, in the Senate and Congress, where we had a June primary, but the judge said this plan, violates the law. I don't care about the June primary. I'm going to have a September primary. So, it could create a setup there. And again, a lot of things still have to happen that we have no control over. So what, you have a choice of developing a plan that might, satisfy state and federal law for 10 years, or you might not. Politics plays in, whether you want to reach some kind of a compromise or agreement with the legislature. But then again, an issue is also going to be, if you don't create another 1 or 2 districts that would be plurality districts, you also want to be mindful of the legislature's, I think, other concern is that the existing 5 districts are too weak. And that's really just the smell test. This subcommittee has done the actual state-of-the-art analysis of city voting patterns that courts look at. So if you take those 5 districts and make them all over 50%, that might satisfy the incumbents in the legislature, but it might not satisfy a federal court following the 3 decades of federal court litigation you've had so far. But these are policy decisions that you've got to weigh. You might decide, okay, we know who's in Albany City. We don't think anyone's going to sue. You don't know if, let's say, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund comes in out of New York City, or the New York Civil Liberties Union, and finds some plaintiffs in the city of Albany who decide to sue people you never heard from. That we don't know about.
So I just want to say one thing. I do believe it is our responsibility to make sure what we put forth is as legally sound as it can be. And I mean, we've had expertise, we've had mapping expertise, we've had racial voting analysis expertise, we've had the council of Jeff. And so to respond to you, Larry, I think I know it is our responsibility to make sure that we put forth something that we believe is legally sound. And in the event that there is a lawsuit, we would get pulled into that lawsuit. And we would have to be in a position to defend whatever we did or whatever we didn't do.
Yep. Marie?
If I could add to that, this is not us looking at a crystal ball saying, well, what might happen? The legislation has been passed. It will go into effect next year. So this is not something that we have to speculate about. It's here. And I agree with Marie. Whatever we do, I think it should be legally sound. And we know that law is going to be in effect next year. And if you look at former challenges, I mean, every year over the last 30 years, when there's been a census, there's been litigation. If we know that this is going to be the law next year, then I think we need to take that into consideration as well.
Yep.
And I'd like to say the current 5 MMDs, there's 2 of them that are below 50%. I mean, they're looking for 50%, but based on 2 of their currently configured districts, they're already below 50% based
Right.
on population change.
Starting out.
Yes.
Yeah, before,
No, because of the 2020 census,
Right.
where minority
We
population.
started out, they were already weakened.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
And their last election was in what year? In 2021 or 2019?
Excuse me?
The members were elected, I forget, they were elected in 2021?
The legislators?
Yes.
20, is it 4 years?
I think it's 4 years.
4 years, right?
Because they're running next year.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah.
2019, so they were elected probably, in districts in 2019 that likely had less than 50% minority voting age population. So they're already winning in those districts. Also, the fact that this meeting is being recorded, that we're setting a record here, I would have to say, if there is litigation and any report you put forward, the same thing I just said, 5-10 minutes ago, the New York State law is on the books now. I read you almost verbatim the language in it, so I'm not making any of this up. I don't know if the county legislators are aware of that. And this law didn't exist until this year, so that even looking at the law beforehand, we had no way of knowing. But it's important to remember that even without this New York State law, which really pertains to the two influence or likely to elect districts, that the 5 districts themselves cannot be arbitrarily increased over 50%. Given that the Supreme Court precedent is still very good, very current. It's the 2017 case. Now, the Supreme Court did hear another challenge to the Voting Rights Act October 3rd, but they're not going to release a decision on that until probably December at the earliest, and it's not likely to impact this redistricting at all. But they did hear a case coming out of Alabama over the failure to create a second district using those jingles prongs.
Yeah, I read about that one.
So you're as current as you can be in terms of the law. And I don't think anyone else can tell you otherwise, unless they're just anti-voting rights.
Right,
I think I broke up for a second there.
any questions, any other questions for Jeff?
Back.
Well, no, I just that's a good point, Jeff, that you raised, that those legislators that were elected in 2019 were probably elected through effective districts,
Right,
not because of having 50%.
right. So again, you're really at three different strategies. One is to leave the map in the 5 districts where they are. Second, see if the mappers can draw a 6th district at 50% plus. And from what we've seen so far, they can't. And if they can't do that, then the other question is the other 2 districts. Do you want to leave them out? But you can't take the population numbers in those other 2 districts and start packing all the minority voters into the original 5, because then you run it, so you have a federal issue, a state issue at both ends. But the plan you recommended to begin with was probably the most proactive voting rights map you can draw. Anything that's less than that, it would be, in my view, a rollback on minority voting rights. But that's a decision that you've all got to make, moving forward. And it would be helpful to see what Arkridge can start drawing, just to see what the alternatives are.
Okay, so I think Jeff is planning to leave, so.
Okay, and this is something that people go through all over the country, so you're not alone here, but you hopefully people do the right things. And I'll also just mention as a closing comment, I've been doing this for a long time, and one of my biggest challenges was to get either legislatures or commissions to do this kind of analysis up front. Usually it's not done and it's a guessing game. And then after you enact a plan, then you get sued and the analysis is done and you lose. That's what's happened in Albany County the last 3 decades. So you've done what's necessary to avoid the problems later, but it's just ironic that the elected officials who created the local law and the limits they put upon you didn't like the outcome. And we have to move forward from there. That's life, that's politics. Okay.
Okay,
So I will be around any day of the week, if you need something. Otherwise, I'll join you again next Saturday. I will not be at the hearing via Zoom on Thursday because I teach on Thursdays. I think Marissa is going to cover the hearing. But any other time of the week, please feel free to get in touch.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay,
Oh, and I would just like to point out that Marissa, Jeff did forward to us Marissa's analysis of
right.
New York State John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is basically language taken from the act itself, so it's very, precise. And we're gonna do a much simpler version of it that she hopes to get done, I think, in a week or so.
Okay.
Okay, so good luck, and I'll see you all next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good week.
you too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
So, the next thing I had on here was a contract update, just to let y'all know how things currently stand. So because we had already maxed out our contracts, and we're going into this second phase of work, like for Arc Bridge. We already spent all the dollars of the original contract, and we've requested a contract amendment for $15,600, which brings them up to something like just shy of like $85,000.
I'm sorry, what was that amount again? 15,000?
15.6 was the contract amendment. And I want to say the original contract was 69.5 maybe.
Yeah.
So in going into this next phase of work, if Arc Bridge does work that takes it above $100,000, we're out of contract amendment territory, and we're into needing to do a new contract. And I'm not sure how that's gonna play. I mean, the contract administration board still only meets once a month. I'm not sure to what extent they would do something outside of their regular schedule to accommodate any contract needs that we would have. I mean, I would hope that they would be willing to strongly consider it, but I'm not sure how that's gonna play. So that's one thing that we have. Also, Jeff he threw out some numbers where he said $5,000 for Dr. Hanley to do additional work. I think he said another $5,000 for him, or maybe he said $10,000 for him. But part of the issue with just like a blanket amount is we don't know. I mean, we don't know what the work is.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of uncertainty attached to it. So how do we say we'll go for that $10,000 when we don't even know really what's involved? So I talked to Nicole about it, and I need to talk to her again, because what's reasonable to me, like for Dr. Hanley already has an hourly rate. So whatever additional work she does, it can be expended based on her hourly rate. I talked to Jeff about an hourly rate, and he said that he would discount his rate that he normally gets to the same $400 that Dr. Henry is getting. So either we go for and they get paid based on what they do, well, we try to advocate for this blanket amount, which to me, I don't see why anybody would go for a blanket amount when it's not really certain.
A blank check.
Yeah, it's not really certain
know
what,
what it is.
what the work is, so. I mean, what seems most reasonable to me is that there's some hourly rate that's attached to what they do, and when they do work, that's what they get paid for. And that's what they document.
Makes sense to me.
So that's where the contract stuff is. It's us as a group who need to define where we go from here. And I think at the last meeting, I said that there's like alternatives, at the one end. We did a lot of work to get to our recommended map. So at the one end, it's that we take a look at the things that the county has submitted to us as concerns. We determine how feasible it is for us to make changes that we think would be better than what we've already submitted. But at one end, our option is that after we've done our review and everything, our recommendation is that we stay where we are and we send it back. At the extreme end is that we start from scratch, trying to put together a map. Our bridge produces, another map. So those are the two extremes. And then in the middle, we've developed a number of maps. We've had a number of maps that were submitted by the public. So we look at some of that stuff and we see if there's anything there. That might be more palatable in terms of the concerns that the county has raised. So we collectively have to decide where we're going to go from here. So we know that at the very beginning, when we had first of all, there's no map that we looked at that had all MMDs in terms of maps that we've developed or that have been submitted. None of them had 5 MMDs, which means that none of them had situations where the percentage was above 50% in all of those districts. The most that we've had that where we were able to maintain MMDs was 3 MMDs. And I believe that was only in 5 district maps. Once we went away from those 5 district maps, we had a few 6 district maps and we had a few 7 district maps. Those percentages began to go down. Now, as we said a little earlier, the percentage just was already down at the point where we started because of the decrease in minority population and the MMDs. So we already had that. When we started to add MMDs, of course, the effect of that is it takes those percentages even lower. And when we went to 7, that was when there was the most reduction in the percentages. So I don't believe based on the work that we've done with ArcBridge and based on the maps that have been submitted by the public, that it's possible to get all MMDs.
No, I don't even know if we could do it with 5. I mean, I'm looking at the maps that were revised and, that we looked at and that Dr. Hanley analyzed. And the only one that had 3 MMDs was Plan A revised.
Yeah, that was a 5-district map.
And that was a 5-district map. All of the 7-district maps and even the 6-district map, none of them have us at 50%. But as determined doing the effectiveness analysis, they were effective. And as Jeff just pointed out, the legislators that were elected in 2019 were probably elected from districts that were effective and did not have 50%. Because right now, looking at the current districts, only 3 of them have over 50%.
Yeah, it's likely that they would have been plurality districts
Which is what we have.
with a combination of minority voters, including Blacks and Hispanics, and not MMDs. So I'm interested in hearing what everybody's thoughts are.
Before, can we just itemize what their concerns are?
Yeah, I was gonna go from here.
Okay.
So this is what they said. Albany County has 5 strong majority minority districts,
We don't.
which is not true.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Right.
That's not a true statement. And it says districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So we know that's not true because we know that because of changes in the population, that those districts have
Tell me
weakened.
1, 2.
3, 4, and 6. They say that maintaining effective MMDs safeguard voting rights and allows minority populations to elect their preferred candidates. So we know that in situations.
And that's
where-
what we gave them. We gave them 5. We gave them 7 effective.
They said the final map presented contains 5 MMDs with the possibility of 2 opportunity MMDs, which raised some concerns. And these are the concerns. The districts will be weak and ineffective as MMDs. Communities of color are better served if the minority voting populations.
So we can itemize these. So just go about, they will be weak and what?
Ineffective
Ineffective.
as MMDs. And the answer to that is yes, they already are. And no matter what we do, they're still not gonna be as strong as they were.
Because of the population, declining population.
Right.
Okay.
Communities of color are better served. And then you could just do bullets.
What'd you say?
Okay.
Minority voting populations are not spread thin. That they're more cohesive, unified, better able to represent the needs of the residents. The ask is that we re-review the maps to see if a more concentrated minority voting age population in the MMDs would be more effective.
Excuse me, to see a more concentrated,
More concentrated.
I said non-Hispanic, Black, VAP, and the MMDs would be,
Yeah, minority voting age population
would be possible.
would be more effective.
Would that create less districts if we did that? Like,
Yeah.
there is, and I asked that too, because if we've seen, I mean, it's like we said, before we even started this, the districts were already, the population was already under, and so I almost feel like we need to, I feel like there's still education that's needed for the legislators. Like, I wonder, do you really recognize your population has moved and they're in these other areas that are less concentrated? So it's not only do people move out of possibly the city, possibly the county, but they're also spread.
They're
Across the
spread
county
into
now.
areas where,
Not as concentrated.
Yeah, I mean,
where they can't be pulled into an
Yes.
MMD because of
Right.
where they are.
And
yeah,
the other piece is they start out with, on a fallacy. They don't have 5 strong
Mhm.
districts right now. They have 3.
yeah, that's,
How do you define strong too?
Well,
That's
it's
my
their
question
question strong
too.
is over
Yeah,
50%.
I understand, but
yeah,
Okay.
that's my question too, strong.
So but you don't, and 50% for one purpose is not the same as effective.
Mhm.
What we gave them was 7 effective districts. Right now, based on the population on the 2020 census, they have 3 strong and 2 effective. We gave them 7 effective, but you're right, Kashana. You've got to look at where the population is.
Because I feel like no matter what, even when we walk away from, or when this is all done, every county now has to be like recognizing the minorities that live in their districts. It's not just, I know we're concentrated on getting the MMDs, but every legislator now has minorities living in their districts, so they have to be responsive to those needs. Like altogether, I guess. But yeah, I'm worried that if we did the review and go by what they're saying, they have less than what we've proposed.
If they're looking for,
That's true.
if they're looking for strong MMDs over 50%,
They're not
they're
gonna,
not
wouldn't get it.
gonna have, they're not gonna have 5.
Yeah, can we ask
They're
them,
really
like,
down to 3.
can we push, or can we ask a question to them, based on what they said, like, what do they define as strong?
Mhm.
We can.
I don't know if we can send that.
'Cause it
Can
sounds
you
like
provide
they're not-
clarity?
Aware of that either. When they say they have 5 strong
Mhm.
districts, but in reality, they really don't.
Mhm.
They had 5 at the time that
Yeah.
map was
Mhm.
created.
Yeah,
Correct.
That was 10 years ago.
I mean, definitely not MMDs.
yeah,
Definitely
Right.
not.
Right. So when you don't go to when you don't have strong MMDs, then you go to effective,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and that's what we gave.
So, and then the 2 things that kind of hang off of our review. And I just lost my train of thought. One of them is Manans, that there's a concentrated minority population
Mhm.
in Manans. The other one is that the biggest increase in diversity
Mhm.
occurred in District 7,
Okay, yeah.
such that District 7 presented the best opportunity to create an additional MMD.
Yeah.
And also that whatever we do, we still need to have a heavy reliance on Dr. Hanley's analysis, because that's a big piece of what provides some defense
Yeah,
of what we
right.
do.
Right, right.
Because her analysis includes, correct me if I'm wrong, it's looking at, because strong in the legislator's eyes right now could be that there's enough minor, like it has 50% or higher than 50% voting age population, non-Hispanic, Black. But the the analysis will also show how many actually come out to vote, because it's one thing that the population
Right,
size is
right,
this,
right.
but her analysis demonstrates who actually or how many actually come out to vote.
Absolutely.
So that's also a part, like, so I keep going back to the question of like define strong, because strong would be including how many of these districts actually people come out to vote.
That's supposed to punch me.
Mhm.
And not, I mean,
I mean, and
you could
that's-
have a lower voting age population, but a higher turnout, you know?
Mhm.
But I mean, but you're right. She looked at that. So her analysis looks at the data in a different way.
Mhm.
Okay, but because it's not just looking at what's the minority population in an MMD, what's the non-Hispanic, Black voting age population, but she's actually looking at how those people voted.
Mhm.
And that makes
Right.
a big difference.
Mhm.
I guess that leads us to one question. Do we stick to our guns and stay with the 7 that we already have? Or do we try
I
to do
really
something
don't.
different?
I really don't think that we could say that right now, because I do think that we need to undertake a good faith
Mhm.
review
Okay,
in light of the concerns that they raised.
okay, so
So I don't think we could sit here right now and say, the plan that we presented, we still think that's the best.
okay.
Anything? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, can we
think
ask
that
our
was
bridge to look at, relook at that 6-district map that I think we had,
Yeah,
and see if it can be done a different way?
Or another 6th district.
Yeah, or
And there
another.
is another 6th district map that, that was recently submitted. I think it was submitted on October 17th, and it was submitted by Lars Dahl. And that map has 6 districts, all pluralities, none that go, if I'm correct, above
Does it go into
above
Manans
50%.
that you remember?
Maybe I missed
I don't
something,
think so.
but Wise said that if we go back and we try to put those 5 districts back to where we were, because in order to come up with 2 districts, 2 new districts, we had to take people out of somewhere. So if we go to try to put those people back to where we took them from, that may be viewed as us trying to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
so
gerrymandering.
now I mean, even if we said right here, look, we're gonna go back to 5 districts. So we're gonna take all the people that we took and make these 2 new districts. And we're gonna put them back where they were. That may be perceived.
Well, some of you
Yes.
can't put them back because they're not there.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
Manans,
That's what I mean.
they're
Right.
in
Manans,
colonies
no,
or
right.
something
So we
like
can't
that.
put 'em
You
back
can't
there.
put them back
So-
because they're not there.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Well, let's go to,
Because they, yeah.
So, and
let's
there's,
go to 7.
I mean, we also
It is
need to
made
be
up of parts of
mindful
current
also
District 3, 4, and 13.
that there's competing
Mhm.
interests here.
Mhm.
You know, the work that we were doing was about representation for minority residents and communities.
In the
In the
county
county,
of
yes,
Albany.
Mhm.
yes, yep. Not the same, sorry.
Yes.
That just.
So, you know, our work was not based on, like how to maintain incumbents in place or,
We can't.
I mean, right, wrong, or indifference. The charge that we were given essentially was based around representation for minority residents, period.
And the local law, we banned from even discussing your comments.
Right. Can't
Look at
even
your own
discuss
law,
it.
folks.
So part of representation for minority voters is ensuring that there's an effective opportunity to create candidates, to elect candidates of their choosing. So the stronger a district is relative to minority voting age population, that's gonna, that's gonna better feed the ability to do that. You know, there's also no guarantees with any of this. And we see that because like we have one of the districts where they elected a white male.
Mhm.
So we know that there's no guarantees even when it is a minority district. There's also no guarantees either that Blacks and Hispanics are always gonna vote
Exactly.
cohesively.
And
Exactly.
sometimes
Exactly.
black and whites vote
Exactly.
cohesively
Yeah.
as they did to elect that individual,
Mhm.
because that was clearly the choice of the community.
Well, my understanding of that district where there's a white male is that in the primary, which he won, there were 2 black candidates who split the vote.
Mhm.
There's nothing to say that can't happen in every
Right.
district,
Right,
you know.
exactly,
We have no control over that,
Right.
right.
and neither does
Right.
the voters decide that.
And if I could just. if you
We
want,
need
I
to
can
do
just-
some voter education,
Well,
you know,
just in terms of
voting
You know, it's a
education.
political
What-
process that,
yeah.
you know, I want to run, you want to run, we get our petitions in, that's it.
And in terms of local law 8, it says that the commission and the MMD subcommittee shall be guided by the goals of equal and fair representation of all people in Albany County,
Mhm.
consistent with established state and federal law as interpreted by courts of appropriate jurisdiction. The factors that we're to consider include the following, but are not limited to this, is whether such lines would result in the denial or abridgment of racial or language minority voting rights. Districts shall not be drawn to have the purpose of, nor shall they result in, the denial or abridgment of such rights. Districts shall be drawn so that based upon the totality of the circumstances, racial or minority language groups do not have less opportunity to participate in the political process than other members of the electorate and to elect representatives of their choice. Shall minimize population variance to the extent practicable among districts in accordance with federal law, but in no instance shall a district's population exceed 105% or be less than 95% of the ideal district size. Each district shall consist of contiguous territory, shall be compact in form as practicable. Districts shall be consistent with existing municipal and rural boundaries and neighborhoods within Albany County. Balance and reasonableness for the diversity of citizens residing in all parts of the county. Places of residence of incumbents or candidates shall not be identified or considered. Party registration shall be excluded from all phases of the mapping process, but may be used to test maps for compliance with the above goals with party voting history and participation included. Those are our guidelines. That's what we were charged to do. So I think, we look at maybe trying to come up with a 6-district map. And then see how it maybe passes muster with Dr. Hanley's effective analysis.
Yeah, trying to see if I could find,
The 6th district.
the stats for the one that we submitted.
I have to go back and.
So the one we submitted,
I have to go back and look, but when we were doing these maps, didn't we rank them? Didn't we do a ranking
we
of
did.
which one we thought was the best?
Yeah.
And which was the second best? So if this first one that we thought was the best, evidently is not the one, then what was the second best map? Was that the one with the 6 districts?
No,
It's not the
That
one.
wasn't the second best either, right?
I
The
think
6,
D.
so the 6
it
districts.
was
C or D.
I think
because it
C
was
or
part of
D.
the name.
One of them.
Before we got
Because
to
we
C,
took a
we
roll
were
call
at
after
D.
that.
Yeah.
Because we were.
D had-
We had,
And that
I remember that much.
And that only had how many districts? I
What?
mean, the second one, that was the second best D or whatever it was.
It was D, D was the last one that we were on before.
That had 6. C with the 7 and went into the names. This only has.
Is that the one we were looking at, we were choosing between?
Well, this was the one that we had put out
And nobody liked
before
it.
we,
Actually, we put it out because we needed feedback, but I don't know that we were all really enamored of it, but we wanted to get something
well, we
out
had to
there.
like vote on a map.
Right,
And-
right,
Mhm.
right. And at that time, when we put this out, we didn't realize that 7 was possible.
No, we did, because we already had C. Because in that vote, I wanted C,
But,
and what
We went
one
with
was
this.
C, yeah.
but Dr. Hanley, I don't think she had done the analysis.
Analysis to,
When we first put D out, she had not done the analysis, the effectiveness analysis. And it was
No, but
after
we
she
had-
did that, then we realized we could do 7. This is after, this is D, this was done after we first put D out.
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
saying at the point that we had D, we also had C, and we actually voted
For
on
D.
which map we were gonna put out.
And we put out D
Yeah,
because, okay,
Mhm.
but after she did the analysis, we said, oh, we can do 7. So, yeah. But the numbers are what they are. We can't get around the population. It is what it is.
Mhm.
so I mean, part of it is a question of, how strongly we feel about 7.
I think I want to look at the maps again, but the more I think too, I know that there were concerns that were expressed earlier on that, I mean, I feel like no matter what, this time, here we're voting for this map, and I know that this will be future and you guys all won't be part of that process, but the next time, we're gonna see more population move, because if we're all watching what's happening in the city right now, there's all these new apartments and that was a concern that the legislators brought up too, so it's almost like
Well, we can't, I mean.
We can't.
I know we
predict
can't
the
look at
future.
that,
we
oh, yeah.
can't, yeah,
but-
and I think that's part of it too.
Mhm.
You know, that the landscape is changing.
Yeah, that's where I was
and
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
these big buildings going up in a sense that it's gonna change the mix of the population, but
If it
We-
does, it does. and
We don't know
maybe-
that.
That's for the next group to deal with.
Right,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
what-
maybe those,
that's right.
but to
Those
me,
are
that's,
parts.
And I
that's
won't
like
be in
more
that
of, that's
It's more the,
more
That's the
of a
crystal ball.
reason to
That's the
have
crystal
more
ball.
districts.
That's
you
why
can,
I'm saying, yeah,
you can
that's where
throw
I was
that
going
into
with
the
this, is
game, but it's not part of,
Something that
people
we
can bring
do.
that, that's going on with the city redistricting right now.
Mhm.
Because there's, my understanding is there's 2 housing authority towers
Mhm.
that are going away.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But they are
They're there
part
right
of
now.
the 2020 census,
Yeah,
and you just can't dismiss them, that
yeah,
as you're going forward. That is
Right.
for some future group to deal with,
Yeah.
not the current. You can't say, well, I know there's big housing thing coming in or going down, we have to factor that in. You can't. It's the census and the census tract. You
It
gotta
is
deal
what
with.
it is.
That's what, and people can bring that up as an argument, but it's not one that we can consider or
Yeah.
should consider.
yeah.
And they can build those buildings and find out that nobody wants to live there.
That'd be too
Yeah.
expensive. I'll
Too
tell you that, right?
expensive,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
I don't know.
maybe the mix of the population ends up being different.
Mhm.
It's true, too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you now are getting away from the Zoom meetings and all of that, there's gonna be more people coming back into those neighborhoods and different, it may be different people, though, younger, gentrification,
Yeah.
Mhm.
type of, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it
yeah.
is.
That's where I was going, is that I feel like even we're going to 7 districts right now, it's just gonna continue to, I feel like we're in it,
You're
but
right.
it's gonna
Right.
continue
Mhm.
into the next one
We're,
too.
we're on the forefront.
Yeah, yep,
Of that whole change.
yeah,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
Which is,
And how about, that Skylar Inn that's out in Manans? That's a shelter and 99.9% are minorities. Now, they're temporarily, but
Mhm.
when it comes to filling out the census,
They were
they're-
there.
yeah, they were there.
Yeah.
And although they're not considered in one of the districts, they're still minorities. And then there's another one out in, right behind the cross gates. And that would be,
Oh,
those
yeah,
minorities
that's
too would be considered
Mhm.
Guilderland residents if, they filled out the census. But that's not forever because those folks are gonna be in those districts, in Guilderland and all of that as well. So none of us can predict what's going to happen because people move around. I mean, it is what it is.
So, as a refresh, the districts that we have right now, none of them are 50% or more non-Hispanic Black voting age population. In terms of coalition district with Hispanic and Blacks combined, District 1 is at 55.41%. District 2 is at 56.86%. District 3 is at 48.85%. District 4 is at 56.37%, 40%. District 6 is at 49.17%, and District 7 is at 51.26%. So of those districts, 5 of them rise above 50%, Hispanic and Black combined, but none of them rise to the level of being defined as a MMD.
Right. But they are effective. That's our one, that's our map.
Yeah, this was the final one.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think, once we move beyond 5, for the most part, I don't think we had anything but pluralities.
So we had our A in terms of the effectiveness analysis. A, which had 5 districts, had 5 likely to elect. Revised Plan A had 5 likely to elect.
This was the original plan.
Yeah, so it was 5 likely. The revised Plan A was 5 likely. We had a Plan B that had 7 districts. That was 1 very likely, 3 likely. Plan C with 7 districts, 5 likely, 2 possible. Our Plan D, 1 very likely, 3 likely, 2 possible. So we have 4 likely. With Plan D, we have 4 likely and 2 possible. And that was a 6 district map. One of the large dolls map that we looked at, there was 1 very likely, 3 likely, and 3 possible. Another large doll map that was a 2 possible. And then the Gwen Pope map had 5 likely, and 2 possible.
And look at the current districts.
1 very likely, 4 likely.
So 4 of them were elected based on effectiveness. Well, they all were, but one was very likely and 4 were likely.
We're likely.
Mhm.
Didn't he submit a new map?
He did, that was
Yeah, that's
one
the
we
6,
mentioned earlier.
yeah, the
Okay.
6 district map that I had just mentioned.
So they don't have 5 strong districts.
No.
They have 1 and 4 effective.
Maybe they need education.
They definitely do.
No,
Well, I mean, I think in terms of current,
The current they
they
had
had
3,
yeah.
but when she did the effectiveness analysis. So whatever So even though they have 3 at 50% or more, you would have thought prior to analysis that you had 3 strong. You know, because you had 3 at more than 50 of the current map. But when she did the effectiveness analysis, it shows that 1 was likely.
But I mean, I think that's it, and that's also the theme that's all throughout the Judge Khan decision, that it's not just
Exactly.
percentages that
Exactly.
determine
Exactly.
whether a district is effective, that there's other factors that play into it.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I agree. That was his point in a nutshell.
I mean, percentage, is just one piece of it.
And again, it's decision, he said there's no magic number. There's no magic number in terms of percentage because of the other factors that come into play.
Which goes with what really determines a strong. It goes back to that question of like, what's their definition of strong versus what we're looking at as strong and effective.
That's why I was saying, maybe that's one of the criteria that needs to accompany whatever we work on, a definition of what strong is. Because it sounds like they have one perception of strong, and we have another one, the right one.
Yeah,
I mean, probably, since the whole concept of MMDs is based around polarized voting, and where polarized voting exists, that MMDs provide the best opportunity for minorities to elect candidates of their choosing. I mean, since it's based around that whole concept, to me, one of the concepts in terms of how strong a district is, because with racial polarized voting, you're looking at how the majority votes versus how the minority population votes. So in a situation where minority voter turnout is low, part of the strength of a district depends on what the gap is between majority voting age population and minority voting age population. Would have to be a key piece of that.
Right.
And I would think that that's the biggest piece of what the legislature focuses on.
Yeah.
Because if minority voting age population is at 45%, and majority voting age population is at 40%. But the difference in voter turnout is like 3 to 1 or 4 to 1.
Right.
Then that becomes like a meaningless thing. So, I think that's a big part of it. But I still think, if it's a situation where 7 districts can be created, And there's analysis that indicates that those districts can effectively elect. I still think we have to take that into consideration. Especially, I mean, giving the changing dynamic of populations. And I mean, probably like in the last 5 years, they've probably changed more. I mean, just because of the pandemic, because of people looking to move out of certain areas into other areas, just because of the increase in population that has occurred in the Northeast with people like moving from downstate to upstate. I mean, there's a lot of different population dynamics going on right now that, I mean, it's really hard to look at anything and feel certain of what the landscape is going to be like even 2 years from now versus 10 years from now. Okay, so what's our acts of Archbridge? Try to, because I think it's, I mean, it's important that we really give them definitive direction, because we have to be able to streamline the scope of work that we give them as much as possible. And also because of the short window that we have to like really get work done.
I guess we would ask them to look at a six district map. And I don't know if we wanna, start with one that we already have.
So we can review all six district maps, including submission, latest submission. Probably the Pope map.
Yeah, obviously you're looking at the ones where possibles, take the possibles out. And you look, this
I
was, and
think it
then
was the Pope map.
this, yeah, because they had shared 5 likely and 2 possible. Lars had, his June 7th map had 5 likelies and 2 possibles as well.
Well, you have 3.
No, this one here
Oh,
from June
June
7th. The May 7th had 3 likelies and 3 possible. I don't know if we need to, if you want to do that one. And then our Plan D had 6. It had 1 likely, 1 very likely, 3 likelies, and 2 possibles. So if we could do something, this is 4 with these 2 possibles. That was Plan D.
So can it be strengthened?
Mhm.
Okay, where is everyone relative to Manans? Because I think that's still a piece of it too.
Yeah, I feel like I need to see all the maps again, like, I don't know, I know on Wednesday, we're meeting Wednesday, is that on? Like, like, could we look at,
Well, we have, there's
could we look at all the maps
there's a
again?
slot scheduled for Wednesday, only for us, so
Yeah,
that
well,
would be
that's
at the
fine.
library.
Yeah, but I feel like we need some
Okay.
time to look.
All right, so we're gonna keep the Wednesday meeting.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we'll look at maps, well, and especially the ones that we're asking our bridge to be reviewed, which I have 4. How many do you have? I have the Pope
I
map.
have re-review Pope,
Okay.
re-review Laur's,
Which
Plan
date?
D, the June 7th.
Okay. Not the May 7th. We have one likely, we have one very likely, 3, let's see,
3 likely.
and then there were 2 possible, or 3 possible. We have 3 possible.
I would probably stick with the ones that have 5.
Okay. 5 likelies, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was,
And none of those ones are the ones that are big and printed, right? We didn't print, like, are there some that?
I think we have Plan D printed.
can we,
Larry, you have some maps.
I think I have 2.
Yeah, I only have 2 of them. I think you have like the newer ones.
I have 2.
But I think the ones you have are the newer ones. I think I
Yeah.
have the older ones.
Yeah.
well, can we? Oh, they may, where are we? North Albany. Uh,
I mean, it'll probably
It's
be
renewal.
better if we could look at them like bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So Larry, can you just text me, look at the maps that you have and tell me what maps they are?
Or we can project them on a screen.
That's what I was
I don't even know if we had a large copy of the last one, like after the tweaks.
Yeah.
So,
You mean Plan D?
see,
I
C.
recommend
the
it.
recommended one.
Oh, okay.
I don't think like after those minor tweaks were made that we had a larger version, I could get one.
Mhm.
Well, or can we, I mean, I know that, Hal, yeah, that was where we were treated like royalty. Hal had a TV that we could project it onto the
Yeah,
TV
yeah.
from the laptop.
You can put a
Yeah, I
screen.
But I don't know if North Albany,
The ones that I
I don't remember
scheduled
North
were the
Albany.
only ones that I could schedule because I was trying to, like, some of them have like a block out
Yeah.
period and I don't
For
know if
programs.
I don't know if it's just a block out and you can call and maybe that'll change, but
no, I'm just asking, do they have the technology that will allow us to project the map onto a bigger screen?
yeah, they should, they
I
just got
think so.
remodeled.
I think
They're-
so.
They just
I think
reopened
so,
because they got
because
remodeled, so they should.
wherever
Or
I
did
go,
everything.
like,
Yeah,
Which one is this?
the North
indicate
Albany
that we
one, because
want
they went
equipment.
through, they just
Okay.
reopened, so they should.
So
have
I'll check
everything.
it,
Okay.
but I think so.
Yeah,
Because
because,
it's brand new.
I know that Hal did.
It's right next to the school.
Yeah.
Project on, and it was yours instead of us.
Because it's.
And last
they
time I
just-
went, like about a month ago, I didn't see anything.
So
Yeah,
I'll just check.
That was quick.
that.
yeah, because I've been waiting for that one to reopen. When we were trying to do the,
Yeah.
schedule the community engagement, that one was closed because of remodeling.
Which
Which
one?
one?
The North, I was saying that
Oh, they
it
just-
should have everything because
they
they
just
got,
didn't.
they just remodeled
They
it.
just reopened.
Yeah,
Did we decide how many maps we're gonna have them look at?
3.
three.
So right now there's 3,
Okay.
but I think
Okay.
we might also need to look at a 5-district one. Not saying that we're going there, but I think we should look at it.
Okay. Which one is that?
Probably whichever one was the strongest that met the ideal population. It might have been that.
Well, we have 2, we have the original Plan A and Plan A.
Yeah, so
And it
the
gave us
difference
5
between
likely.
those, one is in Manans and one isn't.
Okay.
And so, I mean, the most significant things that changed was we went into Manans, the additional 2 districts. And then I think there's District 7 had the most significant population increase.
They have like, it was like almost like 1,000.
So Manans, the 2 districts, District 7. Was it something else? 7 districts. Oh, and I think the
It's a
population,
long list.
no, the population decreases because the
Right, yeah,
population
I see that.
decreases resulting in a need to go into other
Right,
areas to
yeah,
pull in
right.
population.
But are you, okay, so we're asking, that the Salmon Pretty to look at that as well?
No, I'm saying for us,
Oh, okay,
For
so we
us,
stop with the maps.
these are things that we're gonna have to consider.
Okay,
And
5
then-
MMDs, District 7, population decrease and population movement.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But I mean, so the whole Manans thing, the reason why we went in Manans is because that was, you know, it's the second most diverse area. It's the area that has the, in terms of the percentage of the population of the district, they have the second highest percentage of minorities.
Okay.
So, I mean, we already made a decision to go into Manans. So I guess what I'm getting at is whether anybody feels or has changed from going into Manans.
I don't know how we not, based upon what we're charged to do. I don't know how we not.
Based on the population shift and the fact that they now have a large minority population in Manans. I mean,
Districts shall be drawn so that based on the totality of the circumstances, racial or minority language groups do not have less opportunity to participate in the political process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so next steps, we're gonna meet on Wednesday. Oh, you can. Meet on Wednesday. More closely. Review maps.
Which one?
The shelter at the stadium.
Flush out.
Push it in my hands, but it's up, but it's considered common.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Flush out, Arc Bridge. Okay, so we're gonna have a meeting on the 26th, and everybody that can attend the ACRC meeting on the 27th should try to attend.
We'll be there, hopefully.
I should be there. I should have my,
No, that's Gilderland Library at 7:30.
should have my projects hopefully in the middle.
That's on Western Avenue. Straight out.
Anything else we need to talk about?
Okay.
I think we're good for now.
That's good.
I hope we adjourn.
I will entertain a motion.
Just moved, I second.
It has been moved and properly second that the meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
I will stop the recording.
Are we still going out? Because I got two.
Mhm.
Shawna said she can't make it.
Well, ask the
I don't